Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you for the sub, Anons. How are you doing today? There we go. I was just like, come on, sorry about. Hi, welcome. You are freed. Yes, apologies. I forgot to actually go live. Whoopsie. Thank you for the sub. Welcome. And yes, I see you have found the emotes. Fantastic. Okay, great. And I see that they're working fine. We have new screens. This was yesterday's project. And yeah. So you're just starting your day, aren't you? Now that I think about it. They're looking cool. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's still morning for you, right? I'm glad to hear that they're looking good. I was in a great way to start the day. I'm glad to hear it. We're gonna do Peter Pan, and then we're gonna do some Grimm's Tales. Because great way to start the day with there are some stories in there. There's some stuff that is just like, oh, okay. That was an active decision. That was an active decision that you made. And with that, hi, hello, yeah, we got the fire, we got the book, we got the glasses, and today has been an interesting day when it comes to setting up the stream, because I keep on forgetting to do very basic things, but we're fine now. And yeah, hello. I don't know if you've seen yet, there are many redeems. Now we just need the dancing dwarf in the brazier to bring the room together. I've never heard of that. Thank you for stopping by, the Crooked Man. If anything comes up, you can definitely handle it. Yeah, I think I fixed everything. It was just the start. I was just like, I was off for a day and I forgot how to stream. Nice job, Cirrus. But we're fine now. As you have seen, first of all, thank you all so much for helping me reach affiliate within a week. That is super fast. And I really have you guys to thank for it. Hello, Dokuro. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. If you would like to look, we have channel points now, and I have set up many redeem, including some fun little ones that I think y'all will enjoy trying out. Like there's a pudding in there. It's very fun. That was one of my favorites to set up. But I think everything should work over there. And you see, pudding time. Hello, Rui. It was within a week of your debut, but you've been working at it much harder. You've been working hard at it for much longer than that. I know. It's just like, first, hello, Ghoul. Welcome. Pudding time. Yes. Hi, Koi. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. The pudding is great. There's a reason the pudding is like, I was just like, I saw the pudding and I was just like, time for pudding. I know that I've been working at this for a while, but even still, I could have put in all the work in the world, but without you guys, I still wouldn't have made it. So I do have you guys to thank. But how are you all doing? If are you telling us some lore right now, or are you just reading a book? So I forgot to put in the lore drop, didn't I? That's for next stream. This is just like story times with Cirrus. We're reading generally like stuff that's in the public domain. So yeah, I forgot to put that in. I also don't have 3 hours of lore, so that's fine. I have like 15 minutes at best. It's fine. But that's gonna come out in like redeems. Can you request stories? So currently, because of the like copyright restrictions, we do have certain stories that I've already kind of set out. But if you have a certain story that you would like to hear, I can look into it and see what we can do, because it might be something in the like the public domain. If it's public domain, it's fine, but if it's not, copyright issues abound. And I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get sued. And I feel like that's fair. Compromise. We'll accept as much responsibility for your success as you accept. Okay, that's a fair compromise. I'll take that. I'm just kind of just like, oh snap, you know, I didn't expect to make it this far, this quickly. I was just like, it'll get here when it gets here. And then it was just like, I'm watching my own stream and Twitch is just like, hey, you're an affiliate now. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. And I immediately was just like, oh shoot. Then I started screaming. But no, I was watching my own VOD when Twitch popped up the little like notification. Thank you congrats on affiliate. Thank you so much. That's the reason that I actually had that extra stream on Thursday, because I was just like, if we have an extra stream, I might be able to make it. And then you know, affiliate. Then Twitch was just like, cool, we're gonna process your stuff. Apollo, thank you. I forget the nicknames that you guys chose for me until you used them, and then I'm just like, oh, someone decided to call me Cirrus XM. Are mythologies public domain? It depends. I think a good amount of them are, because they've been around for a while. But it is a toss-up. Anything that's like not Disney is usually fine. Yeah, Cirrus XM, the story of Apollo. I'm gonna grab that because that's a good one. Now that I think about it, you know, the radio station Cirrus XM. Someone decided that was the nickname they were gonna go with, and I was just like, huh, okay, sure, why not? That's my nickname now. I can't. I know. I was just like, I recognized it. It's canon, right? Like that's. I was just like, sure, that's my name now. Why not? I accept this. I accept this fate. Hold on. Apollo. Not Apollo Creed. Oh, that's not fun. Apollo public domain stories. Not from. Gosh. Apollo mythology. Yeah, I found something. Considering, so cool. If you have a specific, like story that you would like to have, if you just want to shoot it to me, either on Twitter or through the Discord, preferably through Twitter. That way because it's kind of hard to find like a good story for it. Don't worry, if I want to convey respect, I'll call you sir. Like, yes, sir, I'm passing away. Oh my gosh, thank you for the sub, Mucosa GB. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I definitely had an alert for that, but apparently my alert is now just exploding emotes. If you remember to ping me, you'll get it for sure. Boo, going to bed now. Enjoy your rest. I know you're on holiday, so please enjoy your holiday and make sure to actually get cash out of the bank, so that you don't have heat stroke, because that was concerning. I don't want that to happen again. That would be bad. I'm gonna ping you on Twitter, so that you, if you don't mind, just send me a link to whatever story you would like to have read. I love the emote explosion. I know, I do enjoy that. That wasn't I had like a specific emote for it. I had like the cinema roll alert, but apparently stream elements was just like, no, exploding emote it is, and I can't say no because, you know, I'm not in charge there. Thank you for stopping by, Picra DQ. Hello, hello. Hello, Estrella Okami. Thank you for stopping by. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I actually noticed while I was away, someone subscribed by the name of Koi Arch. So thank you for subscribing, Koi Arch. I came into OBS and it was just like subscribed, and I was just like, oh, who this? New name, who this? But thank you for the subscribe. And if you guys see someone named Koi Arch come into the chat, just let me know so I can like be like, thank you so much in person. But otherwise, they've never showed up in the chat, so I don't know who they are. So that's cool. Someone subscribes to me and I'm just like, who? Whomst? Imagine subscribing off stream. Who would do such a thing? Who would do such a thing? But you see, when you subscribed, I was actually at my computer and I was thanking you, but I wasn't streaming yet. And I didn't realize that I wasn't streaming yet. But yeah, so today's just gonna be like a nice chill like Saturday stream, cause it's been a busy week for us all. We're all, you know, I'm still a little sleepy. It's been a pretty packed week. Hello from France. Welcome, Vajrax. Thank you for stopping by. Your VTuber is still so cute. Thank you. Once again, this is a general use model from Nizima. So it's just, I have my morning tea with me. This is perfect. Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Since this week was my debut, and I've been working nonstop, up until it and after it to do everything. So I'm still a little eepy. So we're today's just gonna be a nice calm stream. We're just gonna read the nice stories and have some fun with a combination of just like nice fairy tales, and there's some, there's like the grim tales, which are definitely they're built different, but they're still a lot of fun. Speaking of which, fun fact, the first time I read Brothers Grimm, I was like in the 4th grade. Please get some well-deserved rest later. I appreciate the Sunday and Monday schedule. Yeah, I definitely, after this stream, I'm going to be sleeping. Yesterday, I slept for like half the day, which is the reason I was not super active on Twitter yesterday, because I was asleep for a long time. And then, yeah, so tomorrow I'm going to be doing a lot of resting. And then by Tuesday, we'll be ready to go. So, how old is fourth grade? I was 9. So, that was the first time I read the Grimm fairy tales. And I don't know if you know this, but 9 is too early to read Grimm fairy tales. You're not prepared for them at the age of 9. At least I certainly was not. And it was just like, oh, okay. And I put them down. And I was just like, I'm gonna deal with that later. I'm gonna deal with that later. I read a good number of them, and it was just like, oh no, this is getting creepy weird. This is not great. So I just put them down, and I was just like, no. And then I never picked them up again because I forgot. I forgot to actually go back to them, but that's fine. So we are going to read some of those, and we're also going to read Peter Pan. And if I get the if I get a link from Google for the mythology story that they would like, I will also read that. And in the future, I will, like, a few days before the reading streams, I will post a Twitter thing. If you guys have any stories you would like me to read, please have them be public domain stories, but I will read them, and this will be like a once a month occurrence, just because I think it's fun. So we're gonna start with some Peter Pan, and just the thing about Peter Pan. So the version of Peter Pan that we're reading is in fact the public domain version, but that is not to say that every version of Peter Pan is within the public domain. So the version that was made by Disney is not within the public domain, even though it's the same story. Disney owns their version, and until it exits, until it basically exits their copyright, which at this rate it never will, Disney will go out of their way to kind of try to crack down on public domain stories such as this one, because of the possibilities that could be achieved with those kind of stories. But that's just something that is interesting to know. I don't know if any of you know about the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive, it's a great site, it's a great resource, but because of the fact that it uses a lot of public domain materials and just a lot of old discontinued stuff, a lot of companies want to get rid of it because they're like, it's violating our copyright. No, it's not. Thank you for the follow, Booty Clap 23. I didn't expect to say that on stream today, but thank you for the follow all the same. Yeah. So here we go. Let me turn this down a little bit. There we go. Peter Pan by James M. Barrie. Chapter 1. Peter breaks through. All children, except one, grew up. Nah. First line, I'm screwing up. Nice job, Cirrus. They soon know that they will grow up. And the way Wendy knew was this. One day, when she was 2 years old, she was playing in a garden, and she plucked another flower and ran with it to her mother. I suppose she must have looked rather delightful, for Mrs. Darling put her hand to her heart and cried, "Oh, why can't you remain like this forever?" This was all that passed between them on the subject. But henceforth, Wendy knew that she must grow up. You always know after you are 2. 2 is the beginning of the end. Oh no, that is... 2 is the beginning of the end. That's kind of depressing. But we live. 2 was not the beginning of the end for me, but 2 shouldn't be the beginning of the end for any child. You shouldn't feel like you need to grow up at the age of 2, but that's fine. Of course, they lived at 14, their house number on the street. And until Wendy came, her mother was the chief one. She was a lovely lady, with a romantic mind and such a sweet, mocking mouth. What? Her romantic mind was like the tiny boxes, one within the other, that came from the puzzling East. And 1 is the loneliest number. 2 can just be as sad as 1, but because it's the loneliest number after 1. True, but I don't feel like you should, you know, like, I don't feel like you should know that you need to grow up at the age of 2. Like, I feel like, wait until at least 5, you know? 2 is too soon. This is also a terrible description of any human being. Why would you describe a human like this? Her romantic mind was like the tiny boxes, one within the other, that would come from the puzzling East. However many you discover, there is always one more. And her sweet, mocking mouth had one kiss on it that Wendy could never get, though there it was, perfectly conspicuous in the right-hand corner. Oh no, this... You know, now I'm starting to realize why yeah, Disney cleaned up the story a lot. Because we're like in paragraph 2, and I'm already just like, this is pretty rough. This is not a children's story. Especially this next paragraph. Oh, good Lord. The way Mr. Darling won her was this. The many gentlemen who had been boys when she was a girl discovered simultaneously that they loved her. And they all ran to her house to propose to her, except for Mr. Darling, who took a cab and nipped in first. Oh, hydrate. Thank you for the hydrate. And for the posture check. Thank you. Because I had not hydrated. And the stretch. Oh my gosh. And the head pats. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I should have really put my phone up. Hello. Thank you for stopping by, Acute. Thank you for the hydrate, the posture check, the stretch, and the head pats. Thank you so much. I really should have put my mic on mute. But it's fine. It's fine. He got all of her, except for the innermost box and the kiss. He never knew about the box. In time, he gave up trying for the kiss. Wendy thought Napoleon could have got it, but I can picture him trying, and then going off in passion, slamming the door. Mr. Darling used to boast to Wendy that his mother not only loved him, but respected him. He was one of those deep ones who know about stocks and shares. Of course, no one really knows, but he quite seemed to know. And he often said stocks were up and shares were down, in a way that would have made any woman respect him. The water bottle crinkling just added value to the redeem. No worries. I'm glad to hear it. Again, I should have just muted the mic, but I didn't think about the water bottle crinkling until after the fact. And then I was like, oh, that happened. Too late to go back now. We'll call it ASMR. Mrs. Darling was married in white. And at first she kept the books, perfectly, almost gleefully, as if it were a game. But not so much as a Brussels sprout was missing. But by and by, whole cauliflowers dropped out. And instead of them, there were pictures of babies without faces. She drew them when she should have been totting up. They were Mrs. Darling's guesses. It's true, I sit with the adults and just blurt stocks her up and shares her down, and we all nod in unison. So the funny thing is that when I was in high school, I had an economics teacher who taught us that he was just basically just like, oh, the entire stock market is just full of guesses. So if someone like is just like, oh, stocks are up, shares are down, that's all just blatant guesswork. And it's true. They don't really they're just kind of like flubbing it. And we're expected to be like, ah, yes, you know what you're doing. I feel like that'd be a tad unsettling. A bunch of faceless people and babies at that. Yeah, that would be unsettling. Now, that doesn't sound great. And the way it's just like, she drew them. So she drew pictures of babies without faces. And that's more concerning than I feel like it's that's not great. That's not ideal. They were Mrs. Darling's guesses. What does that even mean? Oh, okay. Either way, not ideal. Wendy came first, then John, then Michael. For a week or two after Wendy came, it was doubtful whether they'd be able to keep her, as she was another mouth to feed. Mr. Darling was frightfully proud of her, but he was very honorable. Ah, yes, the ideal baby has a face. I mean, would you not be more concerned if your baby did not, in fact, have a face? I love the bar that we're setting for baby standards. I mean, I feel like it would be more concerning if the baby didn't have a face at all. Then we'd be like, oh, that's a problem. I'd be concerned too. Yeah, baby with face is better than baby without face, I feel like. Because if the baby doesn't have a face, then maybe it means that the babies are pure. I don't know, baby without face is still concerning. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Baby without face does not sound like a great idea. Also, just the fact that it's I don't know if we're gonna have this child. We're gonna be able to keep this child, because she was another mouth to feed. Does remind me that I'm pretty sure this book happened during the Great Depression, which would explain a lot. That would also explain why no one wondered where the children were the entire time they were in Neverland. No one was just like, where are our children? Because they were just too many mouths to feed. We'll figure that out later. Mr. Darling was frightfully proud of her, but he was very honorable, and he sat on the edge of Mrs. Darling's bed, holding her hand and calculating expenses, while she looked at him imploringly. She wanted to risk it. Come what might, but that was not his way. His way was with a pencil and a piece of paper, and if she confused him with suggestions, he had to begin at the beginning again. Now don't interrupt, he would beg of her. I have £1.17 here, and 2 and 6 at the office. I can cut off my coffee at the office, say 10 shillings, making 2, 9, and 6. With your 18 and 3 makes 397. And with 5 not, what? In my checkbook makes 897. Who is that moving? 897. Dot and carry 7. Don't speak, my own. And the pound that you lent to that man who came to the door. Quiet, child. Dot and carry, child. There, you've done it. Did I say 997? Yes, I said 997. Now, the question is, can we try it for a year on 997? Of course we can, George, she cried. But she was prejudiced in Wendy's favor, and he was really the grander character of the two. Oh my god. Oh, man. He was the grander character. That's a way to describe people. Okay. Remember Mumps? He warned her almost threateningly, and off he went again. Mumps £1. That is what I have put down, but I dare say it will be more like 30 shillings. Knots used to refer to zeros feels old. So I understood that, but I was just like 500. Did he mean 500 or did he just mean 5? I'm not sure what his math is. It doesn't feel like good math, but that's all. That's besides the point. He may have been like 500. I don't know. It was very. He lost me a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. I can deal with that. Also, just the fact that it had to be like, remember Mumps. Yeah, like that does tell you something about the times. Excuse me. Remember Mumps? He warned her almost threateningly, and off he went again. Mumps £1. That is what I have put down, but I dare say it will be more like 30 shillings. Don't speak. Measles 1.5. German measles half a guinea makes 2.15 6. Don't waggle your finger. Whooping cough say 15 shillings, and so on it went, and it added up differently each time. But at last Wendy just got through, with mumps reduced to 12 6, and the two types of measles treated as one. Vaccinate your kids. These are things that like we used to have to be like concerned about, like actually. Not to say that we're still not concerned about measles, because that's still a thing that's popping up now, but it used to be a lot worse back in the day, and I'm really glad for like modern medicine. Okay, we're fixing glasses. Modern medicine is really nice because we can do things like have protection from measles. The bar is on the ground. Modern medicine, really, like, it's great stuff. There was the same excitement over John, and even Michael had an even narrower squeak, but both were kept, and soon you might have seen the three of them going in a row to Miss Folsom's kindergarten school, accompanied by their nurse. Mrs. Darling loved to have everything just so, and Mr. Darling had a passion for being exactly like his neighbors, so of course they had a nurse. Oh my god. They were poor, owing to the amount of milk the children drank. This nurse was a prim Newfoundland dog called Nana, who belonged to no one in particular until the Darlings engaged her. The nurse is a dog. I forgot that. I guess, look, I should be the only nurse. I'm the only dog that I feel like can be trusted with your children. Maybe some other VTubers, but on the whole, like, with regular dogs, don't trust dogs with your kids. Like, on the whole, doesn't sound like a good idea. Also, the fact that there's like, the fact that it's like, she belonged to no one in particular until the Darlings engaged her. She was a stray. They just picked up a stray dog and were just, don't trust kids with your dogs. That too. Don't trust kids with your dogs. Don't trust your kids with me either. Don't do that. Although I'm pretty child friendly, but just on the whole, don't trust children with me. But she was a stray dog, and they're like, you're gonna be our nanny. I really gotta wonder how the dog felt about that. She had always thought children important, however. You seem trustworthy, though. Noted. We'll keep that in mind. I appreciate it. Like, I am pretty kid friendly, but you know, I wouldn't want to be the one to like be like, oh, I'm gonna take care of your children. I'll take care of your children for like short periods of time while I'm on stream. Otherwise, my time of taking care of kids is over. I paid my dues. I'm never doing that again. She had always thought children important, however, and the Darlings had become acquainted with her in Kensington Gardens, where she spent most of her time peeping into perambulators, which are just strollers. And she was much hated by careless nursemaids. Oh, that's just not stream elements. Whom she followed to their houses. Understandable, kids can be quite exhausting. So fun fact, I used to teach preschool, and I had the sweetest 2-year-olds. The 2-year-olds were precious. The minute they turned 3, everything was over. You know how they say terrible 2s? No, it's terrible 3s. But I will tell that story another time. Wait, is this woman a dog? This is a dog. This is not a woman. This is in fact a dog. So the way that they're talking about her, they're just like, she thought children important. Yeah, she's a dog. Yeah, she's just a doggo. And I feel like we're asking way too much of her. She followed them to their homes and complained to their mistresses. I'm sorry, once again, a dog. She proved to be quite a treasure as a nurse. How thorough she was at bath time, and up at any moment of the night if one of her charges made the slightest cry. Of course, her kennel was in the nursery because, again, dog. Just in case the way that they're writing about her. Thank you for the follow, 1987 Silverado. Isn't that a car? Thank you for the follow all the same, car company. That's super awesome. Oh my gosh, so many emails. So much explosion. I gotta fix that, because that's gonna freak me out. Emote explosion. Yeah, I don't know if I... Hello, how does it feel to have a old truck follow you, and how are y'all? I mean, it's pretty legit. Oh my gosh, thank you for the follow, Arctic Empress. Oh, this is gonna be my whole day. This is gonna be my whole day. Oh my gosh, thank you for the raid, Ken. Thank you for the raid, Red. Yes, welcome, Arctic Empress. Yes, a car is following. Hi. This is the one that I said, Cirrus XM. Oh my gosh. Oh wow, we met our follower goal. Thank you for the stretch. Thank you for the head pats, and thank you for the emote explosion. Again, this is gonna be my day. And if you have not followed Ken, yes, thank you for stopping by, Horan. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you guys here. Red Raid, hello, thank you. Hi, Mai, thank you, Axel. Hello, Ken. Oh my gosh, if you have not followed followed Ken yet, he's super cool. Thank you. Somehow, chill reading is getting very exciting. Yeah, that seems how usually things go. I'm just like, I'm a comfy VTuber, and then things are just like, oh no, we're gonna go out of control. But that's fine. We're going along for the ride. Hello, Vicebox Calio. I might be mispronouncing your name. I'm so sorry. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad that you all are here. I love you too, random citizen. I love you, Horan. You're so great. We gotta talk about a collab one of these days. If you are not following Ken is Red, please check him out. He's great. 10 out of 10 recommended streamer. And his model is just super cool. I'll DM you. Yeah, awesome. Was that a Metro Man quote? It was a Metro Man quote. I'm so glad that you recognized it. Biz, fantastic. Okay. Thank you for stopping by, Biz. And I hope you guys enjoy the stream. I've been on Ken's stream for like the past 6 hours. Ken, why are you holding people on your stream for this long? My guy. Ken, ¿por qué? Amazing movie. Okay, hello without a clue. Welcome. Thank you guys for so much. Oh, you collabed with him. But again, 6 hours, that's so long. Oh my gosh, I gotta check out the VOD. After the stream, I'm checking out the VOD because that's gonna be awesome. I played some games. That sounds like fun. I gotta try to join in next time. But you guys play shooters, and I am a liability in shooters. I was there for pretty much all of it too. That sounds like a lot of fun. We played. Oh, you guys played Among Us. Oh, that's so cool. And Uno, he is too. Oh no! Ken, they're blowing up your spot. Y'all played Uno. That sounds super fun. Among Us. Yeah, we're gonna actually have an Among Us collab in. I'm trying to do an Among Us collab in June. I don't know if you heard about that, or Goose Goose Duck, which is basically Among Us, but make it bird, which I'm always down for. Give me more birds in my life. In other games, that sounds like a lot of fun. Next time y'all do one of those, I would like to come through. That sounds like a good time. If y'all would have me join, I would very much like to join. But if we'll discuss. If y'all are up to discussing, we'll discuss. We are reading Peter Pan, and I will always collab with you. Thank you, Horan. It means a lot. We are reading Peter Pan, and we are finding out that the public domain version of Peter Pan is a wild ride, in which they talk about the dog nurse as if she's a human. And then they're just like, her kennel is in the nursery, and it's just like, oh wait, she is a dog. So she had a genius for knowing when a cough is a throat thing to have no patience with, and when it needs stocking around your throat. Once again, this is Peter Pan. And this, she always knows. I've been listening, trying to figure out the story. Yeah, this is Peter Pan, but this is this Peter Pan that's like the oldest Peter Pan. The one that was like the original Peter Pan that is now in the public domain, because I like public domain story. They're very good. I'm always down for a good public domain story. Also, it means that I won't get like copyright slammed, because I don't want that to happen to me. She believed to her last day in old-fashioned remedies like rhubarb leaf, and made sounds of contempt over all. Yeah, no copyright issues. Yeah, the funny thing is that, so the Disney version of this has been considerably like cleaned up, but the Disney version of this also will probably never enter public domain because of the tight grip that Disney has on copyright as a whole in America, which is such a shame. But we move on. So you see how she made sounds of contempt over all this newfangled talk about germs and so on. Once again, she is a dog. Her sounds of contempt. She doesn't know what a germ is. She's a dog. It was a lesson in propriety to see her escorting the children to school, walking sedately by their side when they were well behaved, and butting them back in line if they strayed. On John's footer, in England, soccer is called football. You're a dog, don't hate. Yeah, but but here's the thing. I'm a cloud dog, so that's very different from being a regular dog. And I'm a cloud that turned into a dog a dog-human combination. The lore will explain that. You've seen the lore, Anons. You have no excuse for this. But yeah, I'm not 100% dog, and therein lies the difference, that I can get away with things, right? But you can't get away with, like, come on, sounds of contempt. Excuse me, my excuse is I will take any chance to bully. That's a good point. That's fair. Maybe this dog has some lore too that could explain things. I mean, possibly, but I also don't make sounds of contempt about germs. So, on John's footer in England, soccer was called football, footer for short. So on his football days, she never once forgot his sweater, and she usually carried an umbrella in her mouth in case of rain. There was a room in the basement of Miss Folsom's school where the nurses waited. They sat on forms while Nana lay on the floor, but that was the only difference. They affected to ignore her as an inferior social status to themselves. Inferior social status. She's a dog. What are we doing? This is insane. And she despised their light talk. She resented visits to the nursery from Mrs. Darling's friends. But if they did come, she first whipped off Michael's pinafore and put him into the one with blue braiding, and smoothed out Wendy and made a dash at John's hair. No nursery could have been conducted more correctly, and Mr. Darling knew it, yet sometimes he wondered uneasily whether the neighbors talked. He had his position in the city to consider. Nana also troubled him in another way. He sometimes had a feeling that she did not admire him. "I know she admires you tremendously, George," and Mrs. Darling would assure him. And then she would sign to the children to be especially nice to the father. Lovely dances followed, in which the only other servant, Liza, was sometimes allowed to join. Such a midget she looked in her long skirt and maid's cap. Oh my god, this is getting rough. But though she had sworn, when engaged, that she would never see 10 again, the gaieties of those romps, and the gayest of all was his Mrs. Darling, who would pirouette so wildly that all you could see of her was the kiss. And then if you dashed at her, you might have got it. There was never a simpler, happier family until the coming of Peter Pan. Thank you for the follow without a clue. Thank you. Mrs. Darling first heard of Peter when she was tidying up her children's minds. It is the nightly custom of every good mother after her children are asleep to rummage in their minds and put things straight for the next morning, repacking into their proper places the many articles that had wandered through during the day. Pardon? Don't rummage in your kids' minds. Don't do that. That doesn't sound great. But whatever. We move on. If you could, I wish we could go back to using "day" in our everyday lingo and not be my way of weird looks. Bring it back. You know what? Give them weirder looks in return. Make them feel bad about themselves. And I also kind of wish I could just rummage around in my mind and sort things out. But can't do either of those things. That's okay. We live. If you could keep a wig, but of course you can't. You would see your own mother doing this, and you would find it very interesting to watch her. It is quite like tidying up drawers. You would see her on her knees. Ah, that's very cute. Thank you, Estreja Okami. You would see her on her knees, I expect, lingering humorously over some of your contents, wondering where on earth you had picked this thing up, making discovery sweet and not so sweet, pressing this to her cheek as if it were nice as a kitten, and hurriedly stowing that one out of sight. When you wake in the morning, the naughtiness and evil passions with which you went to bed have been folded up small and neatly placed at the bottom of your mind, and on the top, beautifully aired, are spread out your prettier thoughts, ready for you to put on. That sounds like that's an interesting way to think of the brain. I don't know whether you have ever seen a map of a person's mind. Doctors can sometimes draw maps of other parts of you, and your own map can become intensely interesting. But catch them trying to draw a map of a child's mind, which is not only confused, but keeps going round all the time. There are zigzag lines on it, just like your temperature on a card. And these are probably roads in the island, for the Neverland is always, more or less, an island, with astonishing splashes of color here and there, and coral reefs and rakish-looking craft in the offing, and savages and lonely lairs, and gnomes who are mostly tailors, and caves through which a river runs, and princes with 6 elder brothers, and a hut fast going to decay, and one very small old lady with a hooked nose. It would be an easy map if that were all. But there is also first day at school, religion, fathers, the round pond, needlework, murders, hangings, verbs that take the dative, chocolate pudding day, getting into braces, say 99, 3 pence for pulling out your tooth yourself, and so on. And either these are part of the island, or they are another map showing it through. And it is all rather confusing, especially as nothing will stand still. Give me one moment, I drink some water. Okay, we're back. Of course, the Neverlands vary a good deal. John's, for instance, had a lagoon with flamingos flying over it, at which John was shooting, while Michael, who was very small, had a flamingo with lagoons flying over it. John lived in a boat turned upside down in the sands. Michael in a wigwam. Wendy in a house of leaves, deftly sewn together. John had no friends. Michael had friends at night. Wendy had a pet wolf forsaken by its parents. But on the whole, the Netherlands have a family resemblance, and if they stood still in a row, you could say of them that they have each other's nose, and so forth. On these magic shores, children at play are forever reaching their coracles, a simple boat. We too have been there. We can still hear the sound of the surf, though we shall land no more. Of all the delectable islands, the Neverland is the snuggest and most compact. Not large and sprawly, with tedious distances between one adventure and another, but nicely crammed. When you play at it by day with the chairs and tablecloth, it is not in the least alarming, but in the 2 minutes before you go to sleep, it becomes very real. That is why there are nightlights. Occasionally in her travels through her children's minds, Mrs. Darling found things she could not understand. And one of these things, quite the most perplexing, was the word Peter. She knew of no Peter, yet he was here and there in John and Michael's minds, while Wendy's began to be scrawled all over with him. The name stood out in bolder letters than any of the other words, and Mrs. Darling gazed. As Mrs. Darling gazed at it, she felt that it had an oddly cocky appearance. Yes, he is rather cocky, Wendy admitted with regret. Her mother had been questioning her. But who is he, my pet? He is Peter Pan. You know, Mother. At first, Mrs. Darling did not know. But after thinking into her childhood, she just remembered a Peter Pan who was said to live with the fairies. There were odd stories about him, as that when children died, he went to be a part of the way with them, so that they should not be frightened. She had believed in him at the time, but now that she was married and full of sense, she quite doubted whether there was such any person. Besides, she said to Wendy, he would have been grown up by this time. Oh no, he isn't grown up, Wendy assured her confidently, and he is just my size. She meant that he was her size in both mind and body, and she didn't know how she knew. She just knew it. Mrs. Darling consulted Mr. Darling, but he smiled pooh-pooh. Mark my words, he said. It is just some nonsense Nana has been putting in their heads. Just the sort of idea a dog would have. Leave it alone, and it will blow over. But it will not blow over, and soon the troublesome boy gave Mrs. Darling quite a shock. Children have the strangest adventures without being troubled by them. For instance, they may remember to mention, a week after the event happened, that when they were in the wood, they had met their dead father and had a game with him. Pardon? Oh no, that shouldn't be happening. That's probably not the right thing to happen. But, that's just how kids are. It was in this casual way that Wendy one morning made a disquieting revelation. Pardon? Yeah, really, like, when they were in the wood, they were in the forest. They met their dead father and had a game with him. I am sorry. Now, maybe I'm speaking as an adult, but I think even as a child, if that happened to me, I would have at least let my mom know and been like, hey, Dad's in the forest. What's happening? I thought you said he went on a long vacation. I was related to that response, right? Like, I don't know. It's whatever. Wild scenario for real. It's definitely an interesting scenario, but I guess there are stranger scenarios to find yourself in. Excuse me. It was in this casual way that Wendy made one morning. Oh, thank you for the follow, Pink Flopsy. It was in this casual way that Wendy one morning made a disquieting revelation. Some leaves of a tree had been found on the nursery floor, which were certainly not there when the children went to bed. And Mrs. Darling was puzzling over them when Wendy said with a tolerant smile, I believe it is that Peter again. Whatever do you mean, Wendy? It is so naughty of him not to wipe his feet, Wendy said, sighing. She was a tidy child. She explained in quite a matter-of-fact way that she thought Peter sometimes came to the nursery in the middle of the night and sat at the floor of the excuse me, sat at the foot of her bed and played on his pipes to her. Unfortunately, she never woke, so she didn't know how. She just knew. What nonsense you talk, Precious. No one can get into the house without knocking. I think he comes in by the window. My love, it is 3 floors up. Were not leaves at the foot of the window, Mother? It is quite true. The leaves had been found very near the window. Mrs. Darling did not know what to think, for it all seemed so natural to Wendy that you could not dismiss it by saying that she had been dreaming. My child, the mother cried, why did you not tell me of this before? I forgot, said Wendy lightly. She was in a hurry to get her breakfast. Oh, surely she must have been dreaming. But on the other hand, there were the leaves. Mrs. Darling examined them very carefully. They were skeleton leaves, but she was sure that they did not come from any tree that grew in England. She crawled about on the floor, peering at it with a candle for marks of a strange foot. She rattled the poker of the chimney and tapped the walls. She let down a tape from the window to the pavement, and it was a sheer drop of 30 feet, without so much as a spout to climb up by. Certainly, Wendy had been dreaming. But Wendy had not been dreaming, as the very next night showed. The night on which the extraordinary adventures of these children may be said to have begun. Excuse me. Allergies. On the night that we speak of, all the children were once more in bed. It happened to be Nana's evening off. Thank you. Allergies are fun. It happened to be Nana's evening off. And Mrs. Darling had blessed them, thank you, and sung to them till one by one they had let go her hand and slid away into the land of sleep. And they were all looking so safe and cozy that she smiled at her fears now, and sat down tranquilly by the fire to sew. So like us, just, chilling by the fire. Except we're reading, we're not sewing. Sewing might happen another day though, now that I think about it. That'd be interesting. It was something for Michael, who on his birthday was getting into shirts. The fire was warm, however, and the nursery dimly lit by 3 night lights, and presently the sewing lay on Mrs. Darling's lap. Then her head nodded, oh so gracefully. She was asleep. Look at the 4 of them, Wendy and Michael over there, John here, and Mrs. Darling by the fire. There should have been a 4th nightlight. While she slept, she had a dream. She dreamt that the Neverland had come too near, and that a strange boy had broken through from it. He did not alarm her, for she thought she had seen him before in the faces of many women who have no children. Perhaps he is to be found in the faces of some mothers also. But in her dream, he had rent the film that obscures the Neverland, and she saw Wendy and John and Michael peeping through the gap. The dream by itself would have been a trifle, but while she was dreaming, the window of the nursery blew open, and a boy did drop on the floor. He was accompanied by a strange light, no bigger than your fist, which darted around the room like a living thing, and I think it must have been this light that wakened Mrs. Darling. She started up with a cry and saw the boy, and somehow she knew at once that it was Peter Pan. If you or I or Wendy had been there, we should have seen that he was very like Mrs. Darling's kiss. He was a lovely boy, clad in skeleton leaves, and the juices that ooze out of trees. But the most entrancing thing about him was that he had all his first teeth. When he saw that she was a grown-up, she gnashed the little pearls at her. Before we go on to the second chapter, let's just take this time to stretch, because if your back is anything like mine, you may have been sitting like a shrub. Okay. I don't know why you call it. Oh, welcome to Ross. We are reading Peter Pan, like the original version. Hello, thank you for stopping by. I don't know why you'd call it sap juices, but pop up, I guess. I mean, I don't know why you would call it sap juices either. To be perfectly honest with you, that's not a name that I would give things. But people choose names for things that I don't always agree with. For instance, sap juices. And thank you for the reminder. Yeah, of course. I had to stretch myself, which is how I remembered. Also, hydration check. Have you had your tea, your water, your hot chocolate? If you haven't had it, have it now. Good morning, Mary. Mary, you're up kind of early for it's you got an ad for a game company. Right, I have ads on. I forgot about that. I forgot to actually do that. I'll do that later. I had to look up how to do that. Set like how much gamer plus skincare collab. That's an interesting. That sounds like an interesting ad. I actually got to find out how to set up ads and stuff so that because I don't want you guys to have like the pre-roll ads. So I'll probably like going forward, I'll start the stream a little early and run ads during the starting soon screen, just so that when we start the stream, you're not dealing with pre-roll ads. Sound good? Great. Okay, I have to look into that. It was a funny ad because it kept on talking about, they told me if I couldn't be a gamer if I was a girl. That's hilarious, considering how the amount of anime girls that are VTubers. Hi Cirrus, hope you're having a good day. Hello Abiel the bear, thank you for stopping by. Darman cute sound. What? I am confusion. I am confused, but that's okay. When am I not? As I said the other day. I hope you're having a great day as well. Abiel the bear, thank you for stopping by. We are reading Peter Pan. And we are on chapter 2. This is the original version. You look amazing with glasses. Thank you. I like these glasses. They're working for me. They're doing stuff for me. I like them. To be fair, I just heard a cute sound. I don't know what the sound was. To be fair, I'm not a gamer girl, and yet I'm also not a gamer. I got scammed. I mean, I'm not a gamer either. And I don't know what I am, but I'm definitely not a gamer. I'm a dog. I'm a cloud creature. But that's, we can't all be gamers. The gaming gene can't bless us all. So we are on chapter 2, where Peter Pan has showed up in their house, like, surprise. I'm in your house now. Being a gamer is a species now, and it kind of is. Like, you had to be built a specific way to be like a gamer, you know what I mean? Mrs. Darling screamed, and as if in answer to a bell, the door opened, and Nana entered. I'll stop interrupting and listen to you. No, it's okay. I don't mind the interruptions at all. They're fun. I like hearing from you guys. I like talking to you guys. It definitely makes the streams more fun. That is unironically true. Yeah, you gotta have that thumb, dexterity to really be a gamer. Mrs. Darling screamed, and as in answer to a bell, the door opened, and Nana entered, returning from her evening out. Iconic. You know what? We support nurses taking time off and taking care of themselves. We support that in this house. She growled and sprang at the boy, who leapt lightly through the window. Again, Mrs. Darling screamed, this time in distress for him, for she thought he was killed. And she ran down the street to look for his little body, but it was not there. And she looked up, and in the black night, she could see nothing but what she thought was a shooting star. Even the nurse, if the nurse is a dog, thank goodness. Yeah, you know what? For every nurse out there, y'all work hard, and in this house, we respect your right to take off time and to take care of yourself. Even if you're a dog. Even if you're a VTuber who is a dog, I respect your right to take time off and take care of yourself. Self-care is important, and we should put more priority on it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. She returned to the nursery and found Nana with something in her mouth, which proved to be the boy's shadow. As she leapt at the window, Nana had closed it quickly, too late to catch him. But his shadow had not had time to get out. Slam went the window and snapped it off. Definitely not how shadows work. Yes, self-care is important. That's definitely not how shadows work, especially because at nighttime, which is like nightlights and a fire, his shadow isn't going to be like super big, much less like it, that's not how shadows work. But that's how magic shadows work, so that's fine. You may be sure Mrs. Darling examined the shadow carefully, but it was quite the ordinary kind. Nana had no doubt of what was the best thing to do with the shadow. She hung it out at the window, meaning, he is sure to come back for it. Let us put it where he can get it easily without disturbing the children. Oh, by the way, if you are not subscribed to the channel, there are still emotes that you can actually use. You have to scroll down a little bit and there's Better TTV, and I've left a good amount of emotes in there if you would like to use those. Just for those who are not subscribed, you guys still have emotes that you are able to use. They're not the same emotes that you would be able to use as a subscriber, but emotes are the same. Express yourself. Nana had no doubt of what was the best thing to do with his shadow. She hung it out at the window, meaning, he is sure to come back for it. Let us put it where he can get it easily without disturbing the children. But unfortunately, Mrs. Darling could not leave it hanging out the window. It looked so like the washing and lowered the whole tone of the house. She thought of showing it to Mr. Darling, but he was totting up winter greatcoats for John and Michael, with a wet towel around his head to keep his brain clear, and it seemed a shame to trouble him. Besides, he knew exactly what he would say. It all comes of having a dog for a nurse. She decided to roll up the shadow and put it carefully in a drawer until a fitting opportunity came for telling her husband. Me. The opportunity came a week later, on that never-to-be-forgotten Friday. Of course it was a Friday. I ought to have been especially careful on a Friday, she used to say afterwards to her husband, while perhaps Nana was on the other side of her, holding her hand. No, Mr. Darling always said. I am responsible for it all. I, George Darling, did it. Mea culpa, mea culpa. He had a classical education. Thank you for the reminder. I need to check if 7TV is working again for Firefox again. And it is. Fantastic. I'm not sure if you're able to use the same emotes with better TTV as 7TV. I think you should be able to, but you don't hold me to that. But there's a Kirby emote in there. He bouncing. I love him. Yeah, there's that one too. But there's a Kirby in there. It's great. It's a good time. I put some nice ones in there. Yeah, there it goes. Kirby! Kerbo, Paya. They set this that night after night, recalling that fatal Friday. I appreciate all of these. Thank you. I had put them in even like before I started streaming, so that we could use emotes until I unlocked affiliate, and then nobody knew where they were there. So I just wanted to let you guys know that they are in fact there. Because I think I forgot to tell you guys that they were there. They sat this night after night, recalling that fatal Friday, till every detail of it was stamped on their brains and came through on the other side, like the faces on a bad coinage. If only I had not accepted that invitation to dine at 27, Mrs. Darling said. Oh, that was Mrs. Darling. My bad. Wrong voice. If only I had not poured my medicine into Nana's bowl. What? Why did you do that? Mr. Darling, that's awful. Don't pour your medicine into your dog's bowl. Like, you don't even know. They might be toxic for them, and you've put your dog at risk. And then I have to come, and I have to bonk you. And you don't want my bonk. Yeah, drugging your dog nurse. And then, if only I had pretended to like the medicine, was what Nana's wet eyes said. My liking of parties, George. My fatal gift of humor, dearest. My touchiness about trifles, dear master and mistress. Whoa. Nana, don't blame yourself. You have no fault in this. This is not your fault. You did your best. I support this. Got some water and switched devices so my phone could charge. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Hydration is important. Then more of them would break down altogether. Nana at the thought. It's true. They ought to not have had a dog for a nurse. Many a time, it was Mr. Darling who put the handkerchief to Nana's eyes. That fiend, Mr. Darling would cry, and Nana's bark was the echo of it. But Mrs. Darling never upbraided Peter. There was something in the right-hand corner of her mouth that wanted her not to call Peter names. They would sit there in the nursery empty, recalling fondly every smallest detail of that dreadful evening. It had begun so uneventfully, so precisely like 100 other evenings, with Nana putting the water on for Michael's bath and carrying him to it on her back. I won't go to bed, he had shouted, like one who still believed that he had the last word on the subject. I won't, Nana, it isn't 6 o'clock yet. Oh dear, I shan't love you anymore, Nana. I tell you I won't be bathed, I won't. Children are the worst, I'm sorry. Just take a bath, kid. I know that, like, when they're that age, like, stuff like taking a bath, they're just like, no, but also stop being a drama queen and don't threaten not to love your dog anymore over it. That's not cool. Then Mrs. Darling had come in, wearing her white evening gown. She had dressed early because Wendy so loved I'm super yawny today. I don't know what's going on with me. Because Wendy so loved to see her in her evening gown with the necklace George had given her. She was wearing Wendy's bracelet on her arm. She had asked for the loan of it. Wendy loved to lend her bracelet to her mother. She had found her 2 older children playing at being herself. Jay was scared. Oh, you were scared of bats when you were younger because your mom would literally wash your head and not care whether you were half drowning or not. That's different though. I don't think you ever like threatened to not love your mother over it. Unless you did, in which case, I mean, that's difficult, but like, you know, Nana's just trying her best out here. Yeah, you didn't. That's my thing. And I know that like when you're a child, like that's something you do. You just avoided baths, also real. I mean, fair. I think when you have that kind of experience with bathing, I can understand like why you would avoid it. Now they're my jam. I mean, I'm also like, yeah, mats are great. Mats are very good. Yeah. Yeah, where were we? She had found her 2 older children playing at being herself and her father on the occasion of Wendy's birth, and John was saying, "I am happy to inform you, Mrs. Darling, that you are now a mother." Filling up a warm bathtub and chilling. I know, right? It's so good. Just top tier. Top tier. So good. In the tone that Mr. Darling himself may have used on the real occasion. Wendy had danced with joy, just as the real Mrs. Darling must have done. Then John was born, with the extra pomp that he was conceived due to the birth of a male. And Michael came from his bath to ask to be born also. But John brutally said that they did not want any more. Oof. Oof, wow. Imagine being the younger sibling and having your older sibling just be like, yeah, I know we were playing at being our parents, but we don't want you. We don't want you. That's rough, man. Michael had nearly cried. "No one wants me," he said, and of course the lady in the evening dress could not stand that. "I do," she said. "I so want a 3rd child." Boy or girl? Boy or girl? Asked Michael, not too hopefully. Boy. Then he had leapt into her arms. Such a little thing for Mr. and Mrs. Darling and Nana to recall now, but not so little if that was to be Michael's last night in the nursery. They go on with their recollections. "It was then that I rushed in like a tornado, wasn't it?" Mr. Darling would say, scorning himself, and indeed he had been like a tornado. Perhaps there was some excuse for him. He, too, had been dressing for the party, and all had gone well with him until he came to his time. And it's an astounding thing to tell, but this man, though he knew about the stocks and shares, I don't understand what is going on right now. So basically they are they're reminiscing about the last day that the children were in the nursery before Peter Pan came and was just like, "Cool, I'm taking your kids. Taking your kids to Neverland." And so they were reminiscing about what that last day was like, and they're kind of like blaming themselves for their children going missing. And so this is what this whole dragged on scenario. It's just like understandable. Yeah, it's just like this, and this happened on that night. Good explanation. Thank you. I tried to summarize as best as I could. I had to go to speech therapy specifically for summarization when I was younger. Fun fact with Cirrus, I had to go. They can teach you how to summarize in speech therapy, and I had to go through that. Perhaps there was some excuse for him. He, too, had been dressing for the party, and all had gone well with him until he came to his tie. Isn't it? It is an astounding thing to have to tell, but this man, though he knew about the stocks and the shares, had no real mastery of his tie. Something the thing yielded to him without a contest. But there were occasions when it would have been better for the house if he had swallowed his pride and used a made-up tie. I mean, to be fair, ties are hard. I just tried to help my little brother tie his own tie the other day, and I was just like, how do you do? We had like step-by-step instructions, and they still made no sense. And I was just like, ties are not my strong suit. Ties are hard. This was such an occasion. He came rushing into the nursery with a crumpled little, tie scrubs. Wait, what? What are tie scrubs? I'm okay. He came rushing into the nursery with a crumpled little brute of a tie in his hand. Not shoe ties, but actual ties. Yeah, like neckties. Oh, scrubs isn't unskilled. No, neckties are hard. Okay? I can tie shoe ties just fine. I learned that when I was 5. Neckties, on the other hand, nah, it doesn't work for me. It might just be that I'm not someone who ties ties often. But, don't know how to do that. Even if you get the knot right, it's still difficult to make the tie look good. That was the problem. We got the knot decently well, but it just you have to kind of have magic in order for the tie to look right. I've never done neckties, so I don't know. I can do neckties because it used to be on our school uniform. That's fair. I can understand. No, that's actually that's a pretty helpful skill to have in life, particularly if you are living in a country where you had school uniforms. We had a dress code. I didn't go to a school that had a uniform, but we had a dress code. But I, born as a female, was never expected to tie a tie in my life. And now that they're just like, oh, you have to be able to tie a tie. And I'm just like, what? I can't do this. Why? What is the matter, father dear? Matter, he yelled. He really yelled. This tie, it will not tie. He became dangerously sarcastic. Not round my neck, round the bedpost. Oh, yes, 20 times have I made it up round the bedpost. But round my neck, oh, no. Oh, dear, no. Begs to be excused. I mean, honestly, yeah, I feel like at what point do you just kind of take the L and just be like, okay, we're just going to take it off the bedpost, slap it around my neck, and call it a day. He thought Mrs. Darling was not sufficiently impressed, and he went on sternly, I warn you, I never really needed to tie a tie. I never really tied a tie until I needed to go to an interview for a job. Yeah, that was the thing. He had an interview, and they were just business professional. You have to wear a tie. And it's just who wears ties in the year 2023? No one. Even business people don't wear ties. I am tired of trying to tie this tie. Honestly, top tier pun announce. I give you a thumbs up. He thought Mrs. Darling was not sufficiently impressed, and he went on sternly, I warn you of this, mother, that unless this tie is round my neck, we don't go out to dinner tonight. And if I don't go out to dinner tonight, I should never go to the office again. And if I never go to the office again, you and I starve, and our children will be flung out into the streets. Oh my gosh. I think that's anxiety, my guy. That doesn't sound like a good mental health. That sounds like bad mental health indeed. Even then, Mrs. Darling was placid. Let me try, dear. Yeah. Yeah. He needs to go to therapy. Caddis, yeah, because I know what you mean. I can't pronounce it either. They have you with that in DBT, but I don't think they really had DBT at the time, so can't really recommend something I don't think they actually had access to. And also they were poor, so like I don't think he would have had access to it anyway, because DBT is expensive. Even then, Mrs. Darling was placid. Let me try, dear, she said, and indeed, that was what he had come to ask her to do, and with her nice, cool hands. Yeah. You know what? I never said that I went to a good DBT course either. And no, I wasn't worried about my setup not being perfect because I know that's a call out Anons. Don't mess with me. The reason that I was more concerned is just because I'm a perfectionist. That wasn't the like I wasn't just like if I have a bad like setup, everyone's going to hate me. Although there was a little bit of that, but again, I didn't go to DPT. Don't at me like this. My first and only therapist was awful. It's hard to find good therapy problems. It is. It's such a shame. There should be more good therapists out there. Yeah, no. It really is difficult. Don't you set yourself in a box, you Gucci. That's good to know. We wouldn't hate you regardless of setup. That's good to hear. But at the time, I was just like, it must be perfect, or else I will explode. It wasn't even like people will hate me. It's just my brain will be like, it's not good. Fix it. Fix it now. And with her nice, cool hands, she tied his tie with him, while the children stood around to see their fate decided. Some men would have resented her for being able to do it so easily, but Mr. Darling had you tunneled, but now you're here, and I'm happy. Also, I get that. Yeah, I'm happy to have made it. I'm also very concerned. My nerves also get to the point where of fearing spontaneous explosion. I felt that, yeah, sometimes my brain is just like, everyone explode now. I'm also very concerned that, like, this thing about some men would have resented her for being able to do it so easily. But Mr. Darling had too fine a nature for that. Like, that's... The bar is on the ground. If you resent your wife for being able to tie your tie, like, maybe don't get married. Maybe just stay by yourself, my guy. Hi, Keiko. Well, thank you for the lurk. Welcome. If you're busy, just don't mute the actual stream. Just mute the tab. You know what to do. Thank you for stopping by. He thanked her carelessly, and at once forgot his rage, and in another moment was dancing around the room with Michael on his back. Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, we're reading Peter Pan, the original version, but I hope you enjoy your game. That sounds like a lot of fun. She's literally helping you. That's wild, right? Like, I don't know why you would be mad about that. Like, maybe don't get married. Maybe don't get married if you're mad about that. Let me see, where are we? How wildly we romped, said Mrs. Darling, now recalling it. I last romp, Mr. Darling groaned. Yeah, thank you. Just, you can just mute the actual, if you're on, a browser, just mute the tab itself, and, Twitch still counts it as a stream. So it's fine. Just don't mute the actual the actual video, and Twitch is fine with it. Oh, George, Do you remember, Michael suddenly said to me, how did you get to know me, Mother? I remember. They were rather sweet, don't you think, George? And they were ours, and now they are gone. The romp had ended with the appearance of Nana. Twitch isn't counted as a view if it's muted. Basically, so what I've heard is that if the actual video itself is muted, they don't count it. But if the tab is muted, they do count it. It's very, very strange and very tricky. I'm not entirely sure. This is what I've heard from other streamers, from other YouTubers. Again, don't hold me to that. But I'm pretty sure that's what Twitch does. Unsure. But that's what I've heard. The romp ended with the appearance of Nana, and most unluckily, Mr. Darling collided with her, covering his trousers with hairs. They were not only new trousers, but the first he had ever had with braid on them, and he had to bite his lip to prevent the tears from coming. Of course, Mrs. Darling brushed him, and he began to talk again about it being a mistake to have a dog for a nurse. Well, my guy, you hired her, so I feel like the person you have to blame about this is you. George, Nana is a treasure. No doubt, but I have an uneasy feeling. They would do whatever they can to cheat their creators out of revenue. I mean, you know, Twitch is owned by Amazon. Nothing we can do about that. We take what we can get. No doubt. But I have an uneasy feeling at times that she looks upon the children as puppies. Oh no, dear one. I'm sure that she knows they have souls. Oh my God. Even if she sees the children as puppies, like, she's taking care of them. And I feel like that's not a net. I feel like that's a net positive. You know what I mean? That doesn't sound like a bad thing. I wonder, Mr. Darling said thoughtfully, I wonder. It was an opportunity his wife felt for telling him about the boy. At first he poo-pooed the story, but he became thoughtful when she showed him the shadow. Did she just say animals don't have souls? Yeah, that's exactly what she said. Ma'am? Rude. Okay. You know what? Moving on. I specifically came to hear your voice, but thanks for letting me know. I'm glad to hear it. I've actually gotten a lot more comfy with my voice since I started streaming and started making clips. Because before then it was just perceiving my own voice. How dare. They all need therapy. Yeah, I think most people in this story need therapy. But a lot of people at the time did in fact need therapy. So that's not news. It is nobody I know, he said, examining it carefully. But it does look a scoundrel. We were still discussing it, you remember, said You were still discussing it, you remember, said Mr. Darling, when Nana came in with Michael's medicine. You will never carry the bottle in your mouth again, Nana, and it is all my fault. Strong man though he was, there was no doubt he behaved rather foolishly over the medicine. If he had a weakness, it was for thinking all his life he had taken medicine boldly. And so now, when Michael dodged the spoon in Nana's mouth, he had said reprovingly, "Be a man, Michael." I guess they did just lose their children, so they're breaking down. Yeah, they are. They're definitely breaking down, which, understandable. At least they're not, in the actual movie, the Disney movie, they just kind of don't notice that their children are missing. So at least, they go through, a grief process, right? So I respect that. I respect that they go through, an actual, process of experiencing grief over their children being missing because that was something like in the Disney version. They were just like, oh, where were you? Like, it's like, I'm home, mother. It's just like, I didn't know you were gone. And it's just like, you were terrible parents. So he thought that he took the medicine boldly. And so now, when Michael dodged the spoon in Nana's mouth, he had said reprovingly, "Be a man, Michael." Won't, Michael cried naughtily. Mrs. Darling left the room to get a chocolate for him. And Mr. Darling thought this showed want of firmness. "Mother, don't pamper him," he called out to her. "Michael, when I was your age, I took medicine without a murmur. I said, 'Thank you, kind parents, for giving me bottles to make me well.'" No, he didn't. That's a whole lie. But I guess, oh, he really thought this was true. I mean, I feel like, I feel like that's also just like a story that you would tell a kid to be like, "Oh yeah, when I was your age, I did this." Even if it's not true. But if he really believes it's true, I think that's more concerning. He really thought this was true. And Wendy, who was now in her nightgown, believed it also. And she said to encourage Michael, "That medicine you sometimes take, Father, is much nastier, isn't it?" "Ever so much nastier," said Mr. Darling bravely. "And I would take it now as an example to you, Michael, if I hadn't lost the bottle." He had not exactly lost it. He had climbed the dead of night to the top of the wardrobe and hidden it there. What he did not know is that the faithful Eliza had found it and put it back on his washstand. "I know where it is, Father," Wendy cried, always glad to be of service. "I'll bring it." And she was off before he could stop her. Immediately, his spirits sank in the strangest way. "John," he said, shuddering, "it's most beastly stuff. It's that nasty, sticky, sweet kind." "It'll be over soon, Father," John said cheerily, and then in rushed Wendy with the medicine in a glass. "I've been as quick as I could," she panted. "You have been wonderfully quick," her father retorted, with a vindictive politeness that was throwaway upon her. "Michael first," he said doggedly. "Father first," said Michael, who was of a suspicious nature. "Good for you, Michael." "I shall be sick, Mr. Darling said threateningly. "Come on, Father," said John. Hold your tongue, John," his father rapped out. Wendy was quite puzzled. "I thought you took it easily, Father." "That's not the point," he retorted. "The point is, there is much more in my glass than in Michael's spoon." His proud heart was nearly bursting. "And that isn't fair. I would say it though it were my last breath. It isn't fair."
"Father, I am waiting,"
said Michael coldly. "It's all very well to say you are waiting, so I am waiting."
"Father's a cowardly custard."
"So are you a cowardly custard."
"I'm not frightened."
"Neither am I frightened."
"Well, then take it."
"Well, then you take it." Wendy had a splendid idea.
"Why not take it both at the same time?"
"Certainly," said Mr. Darling. "Are you ready, Michael?" Wendy gave the words. 1, 2, 3. And Michael took his medicine. But Mr. Darling slipped it behind his back. There was a yell of rage from Michael, and an oh, Father, Wendy exclaimed. "What do you mean, my oh, Father?" Mr. Darling demanded. "Stop that row, Michael. I meant to take mine, but I missed it." It was dreadful the way that all three were looking at him, just as if they did not admire him. "Look here, all of you," he said entreatingly, as soon as Nana had gone to the bedroom. I have just thought of a splendid joke. I shall pour my medicine into Nana's bowl, and she will drink it, thinking it is milk. Don't do that. That's not okay. That's not a joke. That's not splendid. That's awful. Why would you do that? Mr. Darling is a monster. It was the colored milk, but the children did not have their father's sense of humor. But then they looked at him reproachfully as they poured Nana's medicine into the bowl. No, he poured the medicine into Nana's bowl. "What fun," he said doubtfully, and they did not dare expose him when Mrs. Darling and Nana returned. "Nana, good dog," he said, patting her. "I have put a little milk in your bowl, Nana, into your bowl, Nana." Mr. George is terrible. George is terrible. Mr. Darling is far from a darling. He's actually very, very mean. I don't like Mr. Darling. And I will be angry, and I will read this part of the story with an angry face because he makes me very, very angry. Angry. Nana wagged her tail and ran to the medicine and began lapping it. Then she gave Mr. Darling such a look. Not an angry look. She showed him the great red tear that makes us so sorry for noble dogs, and crept into her kennel. Mr. Darling was frightfully ashamed of himself, but he would not give in. In a horrid silence, Mrs. Darling smelt the bowl. "Oh, George," she said, "it's your medicine." "It was only a joke," he roared, while she comforted her boys, and Wendy hugged Nana. "Much good," he said bitterly, by my wearing myself to the bone trying to be funny in this house. And Wendy still hugged Nana. "That's right," he shouted. "Coddle her. Nobody coddles me. Oh dear, no. I am the only breadwinner. Why should I be coddled? Why? That is manipulation, my good sir. Get it together. You not being coddled because you tried to poison a dog." "Angie, you don't deserve my politeness. Don't be mean to dogs. Mean. Rude. Me." "George," Mrs. Darling entreated him, "not so loud. The servants will hear you." Somehow they had gotten into the way of calling not lies at the servants. "Let them," he answered recklessly. "Bring in the whole world. But I refused to allow that dog to lord it in my nursery for an hour longer." The children wept, and Nana ran to him beseechingly, but he waved her back. He felt he was a strong man again. In vain, he cried. "The proper place for you is the yard, and there you go to be tied up this instant." George, Mrs. Darling whispered, "remember what I told you about that boy." Alas, he would not listen. He was determined to show who was master in that house, and when commands would not draw Nana from the kennel, he lured her out of it with honeyed words. "Hello, cool funny Jays. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Welcome. How are you doing today?" And seizing her roughly, he dragged her from the nursery. He was ashamed of himself, and yet he did it. It was owing all. Name it. Let me pull this over. Okay, there we go. And where we were. It was all owing to his too affectionate nature, which craved for admiration. That's not affection. That's just evil. Evil. You're mean. Don't be mean to dogs. I'll bonk you. Bonky bonk. When he tied her up in the backyard, the wretched father went and sat in the passage with his knuckles to his eyes. In the meantime, Mrs. Darling had put the children to bed in unwonted silence and knit their nightlights. They could hear Donna barking, and John whimpered. "It is because he is chaining her up in the yard." But Wendy was wiser. That is not Nana's unhappy bark, she said, little guessing what was about to happen.
That is her bark when she smells danger.
Danger!
Are you sure, Wendy? Oh, yes.
Mrs. Darling quivered and went to the window. It was securely fastened. She looked out, and the night was peppered with stars. They were crowding round the house, as if curious to see what was to take place there. But she did not notice this, nor that one or two of the smaller ones winked at her. Yet a nameless fear clutched at her heart and made her cry, "Oh, how I wish that I wasn't going to a party tonight." Even Michael, already half asleep, knew that she was perturbed, and he asked,
"Can anything harm us, Mother, after the night lights are lit?"
"Nothing, precious," she said. "They are the eyes a mother leaves behind to guard her children." She went from bed to bed, singing enchantments over them, and little Michael flung his arms around her. "Mother," he cried, "I'm glad of you." They were the last words she was to hear from him for a long time. Number 27 was only a few yards distant, and there had been a slight fall of snow, and Father and Mother Darley picked their way over it, definitely not to soil their shoes. They were already the only persons in the street, and all the stars were watching them. Stars are beautiful, but they may not take an active part in anything. They must just look on forever. It is a punishment put on them for something they did so long ago that no star knows what it was. So the older ones have become glassy-eyed and seldom will speak. Winking is the star language, but the little ones still wonder. They are not really friendly to Peter, who had a mischievous way of stealing up behind them and trying to blow them out. But they are so fond of fun that were on his side tonight, and anxious to get the grown-ups out of the way. So as soon as the door of 27 closed on Mr. and Mrs. Darling, there was a commotion in the firmament, and the smallest of all the stars in the Milky Way screamed out,
"Now, Peter!"
For a moment after Mr. and Mrs. Darling left the house, the night lights by the bed of the three children continued to burn clearly. They were awfully nice little night lights, and one cannot help wishing that they could have been awake to see Peter. But Wendy's light blinked and gave such a yawn that the other two yawned also, and before they could close their mouths, all three went out. There was another light in the room now, 1,000 times brighter than the night lights, and in the time that we have taken to say this, it had been in all the drawers in the nursery. Looking for Peter's shadow, rummaged the wardrobe and turned every pocket inside out. It was not really a light. It made this light by flashing about so quickly. But when it came to rest for a second, you saw that it was a fairy, no longer than your hand, but still growing. It was a girl called Tinkerbell, exquisitely gowned in a skeleton leaf, low cut and square, through which her figure could be seen to the best advantage. Wow, that's super creepy. I just want to remind you that they're talking about a fairy, and they're just like, oh yeah, they cut the dress in the way that would show her figure to the best advantage. And I'm sorry. What? Maybe it's me with my mind at the gutter, but that doesn't sound great. Like, I don't know. God. She was slightly inclined to embon point. Oh my gosh, that's a word. Plump hourglass figure. A moment after the fairy's entrance, the window was blown open by the breathing of the little stars, and Peter dropped in. He had carried Tinkerbell part of the way, and his hand was still messy with the fairy dust. Posture check. Thank you for the posture check, Athanatos Scrim. Okay, we're good to go. I actually just fixed my posture a second ago, so we're still good. After a moment after the fairy's entrance, the window was blown open by the breathing of the little stars. I have to go to bed. Thanks for the story. Your voice is very comfy. Hope to catch you next time. Sleep well, Kayako. I'm glad that you stopped by. And thank you for the head pats. Cool, funny, James. I'm glad that that's working. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. One moment, please. Gotta drink to compensate for all that reading. That's true. LOL, saying my full username like I'm a stranger. James or CF James is fine. Okay, good to know. I wasn't sure like what name you were comfortable with, so I didn't want to assume. But I will be calling you James from now on. Please forgive me if I forget. Memory not great, but I will try my best. Communication is epic. Yeah, it really is. I just, I didn't want to like impose. And yeah, I did have to actually compensate for all the reading because my mouth was getting really dry. But that happened. A moment after the fairy's entrance, the window was blown open by the breathing of the little stars, and Peter dropped in. He had carried Tinkerbell part of the way, and his hand was still messy with the fairy dust. Tinkerbell, he called softly. Excuse me. After making sure that the children were asleep. Tink, where are you? She was in the jug for a moment. And liking it extremely, because she had never been in a jug before. Oh, do come out of that jug and tell me, do you know where they put my shadow? The loveliest tinkle of golden bells answered him. It is the fairy language. You ordinary children can never hear it. But if you were to hear it, you would know that you had heard it once before. Okay, so the children can never hear it, but they've also heard it once before. Magic. There's the corner. There we go. Fantastic. Tink said that the shadow was in the big box. She met the chest as if it would sound familiar if they ever heard it. Yeah, I get that. I guess it's just kind of like, how would it sound familiar if they had never heard it before? You know what I mean? It doesn't make a ton of sense. But I also know... Excuse me. I also know that does happen. Like, sometimes I hear sounds, it's just like, that's familiar. I don't know how. I definitely haven't heard it before, but it is really familiar. Oh, shoot. We're not getting anywhere near the end of the story. We're going to have to, like, stop, like, part of the way through, because we've been here for 2 hours, and I'm still on page 20. Nice job, Cirrus. Tink said that the shadow was in the big box. Thank you for the posture check, Kira Korosu. Oh, hey, Korosu. Trying to make it sound like this trying to make it sound like this is an ancient language that is ingrained in everyone's soul. Hello, thank you for stopping by, Kira Korosu. Just pace yourself and have fun. I'm mostly here for you. Thank you, Mary. It's more just I'm looking at the page count, and it's like 20 of 148, and I'm just like, we've been here for 2 hours. I'm this slow of a reader. I'm not, I would, I think I'm just taking my time. I'm getting there. It's okay. Yeah, I'm just taking my time because I'm also like talking to chat, and I'm taking my time just in general. But welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Hello. How are you doing? What time is it for you? Okay. Tink said that the shadow was in a big box. It is 11:57 a.m. Oh, okay. Don't worry. I'm here for your hat, so don't mind me. I mean, understandable. I hope you're enjoying the hat today. At some point, I might actually get some other hats, but I don't know about that right now. That was meant to rhyme, but that's fine. It used to be a charm. I know, and then you were just like, you should change it, and then I thought about it, and then I did. You know, things can change. She meant to test her drawers, and Peter jumped at the drawers, scattering their contents to the floor with both hands, as kings toss halfpence to the ground. Oh, as kings toss halfpence to the crowd. Okay, that makes sense now. In a moment, he had recovered his shadow, and in his delight, he forgot that he shut Tinkerbell up in the drawer. If he thought at all, but I don't believe he ever thought, it was that he and his shadow, when brought near each other, would join like drops of water. And when they did not, he was appalled. He tried to stick it on with soap from the bathroom, and that also failed. The shudders passed through Peter, and he sat on the floor and cried. Honestly, like, how awkward would you feel if it was just like my shadow isn't attached into my body? I'd feel really weird about that. But then again, it's the dark. I don't know. That doesn't feel like, if you have no if you know where your shadow is, right, and you notice that it's not attaching to your body, that doesn't feel great. And so that's why he's sitting on the floor and crying. His sobs woke Wendy, and she sat up in bed. She was not alarmed to see a stranger crying on the nursery floor. She was only pleasantly interested. "Boy," she said courteously, "why are you crying?" Peter could be exceedingly polite also, having learned the grand manner at fairy ceremonies, and he rose and bowed to her beautifully. She was very much pleased, and bowed beautifully to him from the bed. "What's your name?" he asked. "Wendy Moira Angela Darling." Things like this make us realize what we take for granted. For real, science fact. At nighttime, you generally don't see your shadow, but especially if all the lights are out. But seeing as there is a light source, by which I do mean Tinkerbell, there may have been some light, but she was also in the drawer. So this is very complicated. But, yeah. Shadows are cool, man. You're so adorable. I just want to punch you. Thank you, but also please don't punch me. I mean, hello. I don't approve of violence, so can we not? Actually, that's okay. Let's continue. Let's not use violence on my body, please. Oh God, I'm so concerned. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the follow. Please don't punch me. Once again. I mean, some people are just like, oh, it's so cute, I want to hurt it. But those people scare me. Wendy Moira Angela Darling, she replied with some satisfaction. What is your name? I mean, you can stay, just don't threaten violence again. That's all I ask. I feel like that's a fair ask. Look, thank you for the lurk. Enjoy your drawing. Yeah, just, let's just be chill. Peter Pan. Yeah, I am. It's so cute. I wish to eat it, especially around babies. That doesn't even surprise me anymore, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like you have, in the past, put, being like, I am going to eat the plushie that I have in the emo chat in the Discord. So that doesn't, that doesn't surprise me anymore. But, I also know that you're not actually going to eat me. She was already sure that he must be Peter, but it did seem a comparatively short name. Yet, oh no, let's make that a never, okay? I'll give you food. Just please don't eat my flesh. Or my cloud? How does this work? I think I'm just cloud. I didn't think that deep into it when I wrote my lore. But, yeah. Thank you for the follow, Lorimar VT. Hello. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for stopping by. She was already sure that he must be Peter, but it did seem a comparatively short name. Hello. Thank you for stopping by. Welcome. Is that all? Yes, he said rather sharply. He felt for the first time that it was a shortish name. I'm so sorry, said Wendy Moira Angela. It doesn't matter, Peter gulped. He asked where he lived. Second to the right, said Peter, then straight on till morning. What a funny address. Peter had a sinking. For the first time, he felt that perhaps it was a funny address. No, it isn't. I mean, Wendy said nicely, remembering that she was hostess. Is that what they put on your letters? He wished that she had not mentioned letters. Don't get any letters, he said contemptuously. But your mother gets letters? Don't have a mother, he said. Not only did he have no mother, but he didn't have the slightest desire to have one. He thought them very overrated persons. Wendy, however, felt at once that she was in the presence of a tragedy. Oh, Peter, no wonder you were crying, she said, and got out of bed and ran to him. I wasn't crying about mothers, he said rather indignantly. I was crying because I can't get my shadow to stick on. Besides, I wasn't crying. This reminds me of during my debut stream when I was just like, there wasn't scuff. What are you talking about? This is the same vibe. It's just I totally wasn't crying. It has come off? Yes. Then Wendy saw the shadow on the floor, looking so draggled, and she was frightfully sorry for Peter. How awful, she said, but she could not help smiling when she saw that the boy had been trying to stick it on with soap. How exactly like a boy? We're gonna take 3 minutes. Just give me 2 seconds, actually. I'll be right back. And we are back. Hello. Thank you for waiting. My dog was just like, let me out. So I had to let her go. Thank you. Then Wendy saw the shadow on the floor, looking so draggled, and she was frightfully sorry for Peter. How awful, she said, but she could not help smiling when she saw that he had been trying to stick it on with soap. How exactly like a boy. Fortunately, she knew what once to do. It must be sewn on, she said, just a little patronizingly. What's sewn? He asked. You're dreadfully ignorant. No, I'm not. But she was exulting in his ignorance. Why do I have the bossiest dog in the world? Dear goodness gracious. Okay. But she was exulting in his ignorance. I shall sew it on for you, my little man, she said, though he was as tall as herself, and she got out her sewing bag. and sewed the shadow onto Peter's foot. "I dare you say it will hurt a little," she warned him. "Oh, I shan't cry," said Peter, who was already of the opinion that he had never cried in his life. And he did clench his teeth and did not cry. And soon his shadow was behaving properly, though still a little creased. "Perhaps I should have ironed it," Wendy said thoughtfully. But Peter, boylike, was indifferent to appearances, and he was now jumping about in the wildest glee. Alas, he had already forgotten that he owed his bliss to Wendy. He thought he had attached the shadow himself. "How clever I am!" he crowed rapturously. "Oh, the cleverness of me!" It is humiliating to have to confess that this conceit of Peter was one of his most fascinating qualities. To put it with brutal frankness, there was never a cockier boy. But for the moment, Wendy was shocked. "You braggart!" she exclaimed, with frightful sarcasm. "Of course I did nothing." "You did a little." "Hello, Yomi! Welcome! Thank you for stopping by. We are reading Peter Pan. Thank you for stopping by. We've met Peter. He's a bit of a he's like very conceited and a very big like braggart. To the point that Wendy is straight up just like, "You are a braggart." "A little," she replied with pride. "Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for stopping by. If I am no use, I can at least withdraw." And she sprang in the most dignified way into bed and covered her face with the blankets. To induce her to look up, he pretended to be going away. And when this failed, he sat on the end of the bed and tapped her gently with his foot. "Wendy," he said, "don't withdraw. I can't help crowing, Wendy, when I am pleased with myself." Still, she did not look up, though she was listening eagerly. "Wendy," he continued, in a voice that no woman has ever been yet able to resist. "Wendy, one girl is more use than 20 boys." Now Wendy was every inch a woman, though there were not many inches, and she peeped out of the bedclothes. "Do you really think so, Peter?" "Yes, I do." "I think that's perfectly sweet of you," she declared, "and I'll get up again." She sat with him at the side of the bed. She also said that she would give him a kiss if she liked, but Peter did not know what she meant, and he held out his hand expectantly. "Surely you know what a kiss is?" she asked, aghast. "I shall know when you give it to me," he replied stiffly, and not to hurt his feeling, she gave him a thimble. "Now," said he, "shall I give you a kiss?" And she replied with a slight primness, "If you please." She made her... "Oh, hello, Blackheart Plays. Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful night. I saw you in my recommended while going around supporting my fellow streamers and chilling." I was in your recommended? Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you for stopping by. I've never had that happen for me before. That's so cool. Thank you for stopping by. Hello. Oh, and thank you for the follow. Yeah, no worries. I'm glad. I'm just surprised I was on your recommended. To be honest with you, I've never heard someone say that to me before. I didn't know that was gonna happen. She made herself cheap by inclining her face towards him. "It's very comfy in here." "I'm glad to hear it." But he merely dropped an acorn button into her hand, so she slowly returned her face to where it had been before, and said nicely that she would wear the kiss on the chain around her neck. It was lucky that she did put it on the chain, for it was afterwards to save her life. What are we reading? We are reading Peter Pan. This is the original version, like the first version. It is in the public domain. And it is quite the story. We've already gone through like Mr. Darling trying to drug the nanny. That happened. He was just like, I'm going to give my medicine to the nanny. And it's just like, that's a dog. That's not okay. You shouldn't do that. I don't remember that being the Disney version. When people in our... Yeah, it's a nice story. It's been pretty good so far. You need to clarify the nanny is the dog. Yeah! I pretty much go around supporting everyone I can every night for an hour or two, whether it be a work night or a stream night. I always spread the love and hype as we all grow together on the platform. See, that's what I like to see. I'm always down for, like, let's bring each other up, Let's grow together on the platform. Thank you for stopping by, Blackheart Plays, Thank you for the support. Very much appreciated. And when people in our set are introduced, it is customary for them to ask each other's age. And so Wendy, who always liked to do the correct thing, asked Peter how old he was. It was not really a happy question to ask him. It was like an examination paper that asked grammar when what you wanted to be asked is Kings of England. Oh, also, yeah, the nanny is the dog. They made a stray dog the nanny because they're poor. I don't know. I don't know, he replied uneasily, but I am quite young. He really knew nothing about it. Magic dog just like you. Yeah! Just in wild form, let's say. I don't know, he replied uneasily, but I am quite young. He really knew nothing about it. He merely had suspicions, but he had said at a venture, Wendy, I ran away the day I was born. Wendy was quite surprised, but interested, and she indicated in the charming drawing room manner, by a touch on her nightgown, that he could sit nearer her. It was because I heard father and mother, he explained in a low voice, talking about what I was to be when I became a man. He was extraordinarily agitated now. I don't ever want to be a man, he said with passion. I want to be a little boy and to have fun. So I ran away to Kensington Gardens and lived a long, long time among the fairies. He ran away on the day he was born. My guy. Like, you couldn't have waited a little... Oh, gosh. Okay. She gave him a look of the most intense admiration, and she thought it was because he had run away, but it was really because he knew fairies. Wendy had lived such a home life that to know fairies struck her as quite delightful. She poured out questions about them, and to his surprise, they were rather a nuisance to him, getting in his way and so on, and indeed sometimes he had to give them a hiding. Still, he liked them on the whole, and he told her about the beginnings of fairies. You see, Wendy, when the first baby laughed for the first time, its laugh broke into 1,000 pieces, and they all went skipping about, and that was the beginning of fairies. Tedious talk this, but being a stay-at-home, she liked it. And so, he went on good-naturedly, there ought to be one fairy for every boy and girl. Ought to be? Isn't there? No. You see, children know such a lot now. They soon don't believe in fairies. And every time a child says, I don't believe in fairies, there is a fairy somewhere that falls down dead. Really, he thought that they had talked enough about fairies, and it struck him that Tinkerbell was keeping very quiet. I can't think where she has gone to, he said, rising, and called Tink by name. Wendy's heart went flutter with a sudden thrill. Peter, she cried, clutching him. You don't mean to tell me that there is a fairy in this room? She was here just now, he said a little impatiently. You don't hear her, do you? Then they both listened. The only sound I hear, said Wendy, is like a tinkle of bells. Well, that's Tink. That's the fairy language. I think I hear her too. The sound came from the chest of drawers, and Peter made a merry face. No one could ever look quite so merry as Peter, and the loveliest of gurgles was his laugh. He still had his first laugh still. "Wendy," he whispered gleefully, "I do believe I shut her up in the drawer." He let poor Tink out of the drawer, and she flew about the nursery screaming with fury. "You shouldn't say such things," Peter retorted. "Of course I'm very sorry, but how could I know that you were in the drawer?" Wendy was still not listening to him. "Oh, Peter," she cried, "if only she would stand still and let me see her." "They hardly ever stand still," he said. But for one moment, Wendy saw the romantic figure that had come to rest on the cuckoo clock. "Oh, the lovely!" she cried, though Tink's face was still distorted with passion. "What do you want from me, dog?" "One moment. Thank you." "Tink," said Peter amiably, "this lady says she wishes you were her fairy." Tinkerbell answered insolently. "What does she say, Peter?" She had to translate. "She is not very polite. She says you are a great, huge, ugly girl, and that she is my fairy." He tried to argue with Tink. "You know you can't be my fairy. I believe Doggo was wanting your attention." "No, she just wanted to get out of my room. To be honest with you, she didn't really care about my attention. She just wanted to get out." "You know you can't be my fairy, Tink, because I am a gentleman and you are a lady." To this, oh my gosh. To this, Tink replied in these words. "You silly donkey." That's not the word that she said, mind you. I had to change it because I'm not repeating what she said. And disappeared into the bathroom. "She is quite a common fairy," Peter explained apologetically. "She is called Tinkerbell because she mends the pots and the kettles." Tinker meaning tin worker. They were together in the armchair by this time, and Wendy plied him with more questions. "If you don't live in Kensington Gardens now, sometimes I do still. But where do you live mostly now?" "With the Lost Boys." "Who are they?" "They are the children who fall out of their strollers when the nurse is looking the other way. If they are not claimed in 7 days, they are sent far away to the Neverland to defray expenses. I'm captain." "What fun it must be." "Yes," said cunning Peter, "but we are rather lonely. You see, we have no female companionship." "Are none of the others girls?" "Oh, no, girls, girls, are much too clever to fall out of their strollers." This flattered Wendy immensely. "I think," she said, "it is perfectly lovely the way you talk about girls. John there just despises us." For reply, Peter rose and kicked John out of bed, blankets and all. One kick. This seemed to Wendy rather forward for her first meeting, and she told him with spirit that she was not captain in her house. However, John continued to sleep so placidly on the floor that she allowed him to remain there. "And I know you meant to be kind," she said relentlessly, "so you may give me a kiss." For the moment, she had forgotten his ignorance about kisses. "I thought you would want it back," he said a little bitterly, and offered to return the thimble. "Oh dear," said the nice Wendy. "I don't mean a kiss, I mean a thimble." "What's that?" "It's like this." She kissed him. "Funny," said Peter gravely. "Now shall I give you a thimble?" "If you wish to," said Wendy, keeping her head erect this time. Peter thimbled her, and almost immediately she screeched. What is it, Wendy?" "It is exactly as if someone were pulling my hair." That must have been Tink. I never knew her so naughty before. And indeed, Tink was starting about again, using offensive language. She says you will do that to you, Wendy, every time I give you a thimble. But why? Why, Tink? Again, Tink replied,
You silly donkey.
Peter could not understand why, but Wendy understood. And she was slightly disappointed that when he admitted that he came to the nursery window not to see her, but to listen to stories. This is your hydration check. Water time. You see, I don't know any stories. None of the Lost Boys know any stories. How perfectly awful, Wendy said. Do you know, Peter asked, why swallows build in the eaves of houses? It is to listen to the stories. Oh, Wendy, your mother was telling you such a lovely story. Which story was it? About the prince who couldn't find the lady who wore the glass slipper. Peter, said Wendy excitedly, that was Cinderella, and when he found her, they lived happily ever after. Peter was so glad that he rose from the floor where they had been sitting and hurried to the window. Where are you going? She cried with misgiving. To tell the other boys. Don't go, Peter, she entreated. I know such lots of stories. Those were her precise words. So there can be no denying that it was she who first tempted him. He came back, and there was a greedy look in his eyes which ought to have alarmed her. But it did not. Oh, the stories I could tell to the boys, she cried. And then Peter gripped her and began to draw her towards the window. Let me go, she ordered him. Wendy, do come with me and tell the other boys. Of course, she was very pleased to be asked. But she said, Oh dear, I can't. Think of Mummy. Besides, I can't fly. I'll teach you. Oh, how lovely to fly. I'll teach you how to jump on the wind's back, and then away we go. Ooh, she exclaimed rapturously. Wendy, when you are sleeping in your silly bed, you might be flying about with me saying funny things to the stars. Ooh! And Wendy, there are mermaids. Mermaids? With tails? Such long tails. Oh, cried Wendy, to see a mermaid. He had become frightfully cunning. Wendy, he had said, how we all should respect you. She was wriggling her body in distress. It was quite as if she were trying to remain on the nursery floor. But he had no pity for her. Wendy, he said, the sly one, you could tuck us in at night. Ooh. None of us had ever been stuck in at night. Ooh. This is a lot of oohs. This is actually really uncomfortable. And her arms went out to him. And you could darn our clothes and make pockets for us. None of us have any pockets. How could she resist? Of course, it's awfully fascinating, she cried. Peter, would you teach John and Michael to fly too? If you like, he said indifferently. And she ran to John and Michael and shook them. Wake up, she cried. Peter Pan has come, and he is to teach us how to fly. John rubbed his eyes. Then I shall get up, he said. Of course he was on the floor already. Hello, he said. I am up. Amazing. Michael was up by this time also, looking as sharp as a knife with 6 blades and a saw. But Peter suddenly sighed in silence. Their faces assumed the awful craftiness of children, listening for sounds from the grown-up world. All was as still as salt. Then everything was right. No! Stop! Everything was wrong! Nana, who had been barking distressfully all the evening, was quiet now. It was her silence that they had heard. Out with the light! Hide! Quick! Taking command for the only time throughout the whole adventure. Oof. And thus, when Liza entered, holding Nana, the nursery seemed quite its old self, very dark, and you would have sworn you heard its three wicked inmates breathing angelically as they slept. They were really doing it artfully from behind the window curtains. Liza was in a bad temper, for she was mixing the crispest puddings in the kitchen, and had been drawn from them, with a raisin still on her cheek, by Nana's absurd suspicions. She thought the best way of getting a little quiet was to take Nana to the nursery for a moment, but in custody, of course. There, you suspicious brute. Not sorry that Nana was in disgrace. They're perfectly safe, aren't they? Every one of the little angels sound asleep in their bed. Listen to their gentle breathing. Here Michael, encouraged by his success, breathed so loudly that they were nearly detected. Nana knew that kind of breathing, and she tried to drag herself out of Liza's clutches. But Liza was dense. No more of it, Nana, she said sternly, pulling her out of the room. I warn you that if you bark again, I shall go straight to the Mr. and Mrs. and bring them back from the party. And then, oh, won't Master whip you just... Again, she's talking to a dog. Goodness gracious. This is a dog that she's talking to. Anyway. She tied the unhappy dog up again. But what did you think Nana ceased to bark? Bring Master and Mrs. home for the party. Why, that was just what she wanted. Do you think she cared whether she was whipped so long as her charges were safe? Unfortunately, Liza returned to her puddings, and Nana, seeing that no help would come to her, strained and strained at the chain until at last she broke it. In another moment, she had burst into the dining room of 27 and flung up her paws to heaven, her most expressive way of making a communication. Mr. and Mrs. Darley knew at once that something terrible was happening in the nursery, and without a goodbye to their hostess, they rushed into the street. But it was now 10 minutes after three scoundrels had been breathing behind the curtains, and Peter Pan could do a great deal in 10 minutes. We now return to the nursery. It's all right, John announced, emerging from his hiding place. I say, Peter, can you really fly? Instead of troubling to answer him, Peter flew around the room, taking the mantelpiece on the way. How topping, said John and Michael. How sweet, cried Wendy. Yes, I'm sweet. Oh, I am sweet, said Peter, forgetting his manners again. It looked delightfully easy, and they tried it first from the floor and then from the beds, but they always went down instead of up. I say, how do you do it? Asked John, rubbing his knee. Oh my God. That was a very angry dog. Apologies. Yeah, sorry about that.
Why are you like this?
Yeah, but she's calm now. Oh, God. Okay, where are we? I say, how do you do it? Asked John, rubbing his knee. He was quite a practical boy. You just think lovely, wonderful thoughts, Peter explained. And they lift you up in the air. He showed them again. You're so nippy at it, John said. Couldn't you do it very slowly once? Peter did it both slowly and quickly. I've got it now, Wendy, cried John. But soon he found that he had not. Neither of them could fly an inch, though even Michael was in words of 2 syllables, and Peter did not know A from Z. Of course, Peter had been trifling with them, for no one can fly unless the fairy dust has been blown on him. Fortunately, as we have mentioned, one of his hands was not messy with it, and he blew some on each of them, with the most superb results. Now wiggle your shoulders this way, he said, and let go. They were all on their beds, and gallant Michael let go first. He did not quite mean to let go, but he did it, and immediately he was borne across the room. I flew! He screamed while it's still in midair. John let go and met Wendy near the bathroom. Oh, lovely! Oh, ripping! Look at me! Look at me! Look at me! They were not nearly so elegant as Peter, but they could not help kicking a little. But their heads were bobbing against the ceiling, and there was almost nothing so delicious as that. Peter gave Wendy a hand at first, but had to desist. Tink was so indignant. Up and down they went, round and round. Heavenly was Wendy's word. I say, cried John, why shouldn't we go all out? Of course, it was to this that Peter had been luring them. Michael was ready. He wanted to see how long it took him to do 1,000,000,000 miles. But Wendy hesitated. Mermaids, said Peter again. Ooh! And there were pirates. Pirates! Cried John, seizing his Sunday hat. Let us go at once! It was just at this moment that Mr. and Mrs. Darling hurried with Nana out of 27. They ran in the middle of the street to look up at the nursery window. And yes, it was still shut, but the room was ablaze with light. And the most heart-gripping sight of all, they could see in shadow on the curtain 3 little figures in night attire, circling round and round, not on the floor, but in air. Not 3 figures, 4. In a tremble, they opened the street door. Mr. Darling would have rushed upstairs, but Mrs. Darling signed him to go softly. She even tried to make her heart go softly. Would they reach the nursery in time? If so, how delightful for them. And we shall all breathe a sigh of relief. My apologies. But there shall be no story. On the other hand, if they are not in time, I solemnly promise that it would all come right in the end. They would have reached the nursery in time, had it not been that the little stars were watching them. Once again, the stars blew the window open, and the smallest star of all called out, Cave, Peter! Then Peter knew that there was not a moment to lose. Come, he cried imperiously, and soared out at once into the night, followed by John and Michael and Wendy. Mr. and Mrs. Darling and Nana rushed into the nursery too late. The birds were flown. Second to the right and straight on till morning. That, Peter had told Wendy, was the way to Neverland, the way to the Neverland. But even birds, carrying maps and consulting them at windy corners, could not have sighted it with these instructions. Peter, you see, just said anything that came into his head. At first his companions trusted him implicitly, and so great were the delights of flying that they wasted their time circling round church spires or any other tall objects that took their fancy. John and Michael raced, Michael getting a start. They were called with contempt that not so long ago they had thought themselves fine fellows for being able to fly around a room. Not long ago. But how long ago? They were flying over the sea before this thought began to disturb Wendy seriously. John thought it was their second sea and their third night. Sometimes it was dark and sometimes light, and now they were very cold and again too warm. Did they really feel hungry at times, or were they merely pretending because Peter had such a jolly new way of feeding them? His way was to pursue birds who had food in their mouths suitable for humans and snatch it from them, and then the birds would follow it and snatch it back, and they would all go chasing each other gaily for miles, parting at last with mutual expressions of goodwill. But Wendy noticed with gentle concern that Peter did not seem to know that this was a rather odd way of getting your bread and butter. Nor even that there are other ways. You gotta go. Thank you for the stream. Thank you for stopping by, Mary. I'll see you later. Like, you act like I'm not gonna see you like in a few hours. Bye. Certainly, they did not pretend to be sleepy. They were sleepy, and that was a danger. For the moment they popped off, down they fell. The awful thing was that Peter thought this was funny. There he goes again, he would cry gleefully as Michael suddenly dropped like a stone. Save him! Save him! Cried Wendy, looking with horror at the cruel sea far below. Eventually, Peter would fly through the air and catch Michael just before he could strike the sea. And it was lovely the way that he did it, but he always waited till the last moment, and you felt that it was his cleverness that interested him, and not the saving of a human life. That is very on brand for Peter Pan, yeah. Also, he was very fond of variety, and the sport that engrossed him one moment would suddenly cease to engage him. So there was always the possibility that the next time you fell, he would let you go. He could sleep in the air without falling, by merely lying on his back and floating. But this was, partly at least, because he was so light that if you got behind him and blew, he went faster. Do be more polite to him, Wendy whispered to John when they were playing Followed My Leader. Then tell him to stop showing off, said John. When they were playing Follow My Leader, Peter would fly close to the water and touch each shark's tail in passing. Just as in the street you may run your finger along an iron railing. They could not follow him in this with much success. So perhaps it was rather like showing off, especially as he kept looking behind to see how many tails they missed. You must be nice to him, Wendy impressed on her brothers. What could we do if he were to leave us? We could go back. How would we ever find a way back without him? Well, then we could go on. That is the awful thing, John. We should have to go on, for we don't know how to stop. This was true. Peter had forgotten to show them how to stop. John said that if worst came to worst, all they had to do was go straight on, for the world was round, and so in time they must go back to their own window. And who is to get food for us, John? I nipped a bit out of that eagle's mouth pretty neatly, Wendy. After the 20th try, Wendy reminded him. And though we began... Yes, I'm glad you're still here, Yomi. Hello. And though we became... I can speak English. And though we became good at picking up food, see how we bump against clouds and things if he is not here to give us a hand? Indeed, they were constantly bumping. They could now fly strongly. You're keeping me entertained while I'm doing late night note creating. I love it. I'm glad to hear it. I hope that note creating is going well. We're gonna wrap up pretty soon though. Do you have anyone that you recommend rating, or should I find someone? Because I am getting tired. It's almost 1 a.m. here. So we're going to finish a little bit more and then we're going to raid someone. Indeed, they were constantly bumping. They could now fly strongly, though they still kicked far too much. But if they saw a cloud in front of them, the more they tried to avoid it, the more certainly... yeah. I mean, Whiplash is okay. Anyone you recommend is I'm down to send you guys. over too. So, you know, I know this is not like a common thing to do on a Saturday night either. So, and this is not a common activity. But if you have any recommendations, I'd be glad to, take a look and send y'all over in a few, because we're gonna wrap up pretty soon. If Nana had been with them, she would have had a bandage around Michael's forehead by this time. Peter was not with them for the moment, and they felt rather lonely up there by themselves. He could go so much faster than they that he would suddenly shoot out of sight to have some adventure in which they had no share. He would come down laughing over something fearfully funny he had been saying to a star, but he had already forgotten what it was, or he would come with mermaid scales still sticking to him, and yet not be able to say for certain what had been happening. It was really rather irritating to children who had never seen a mermaid. And if he forgets them so quickly, Wendy argued, how can we expect that he will go on remembering us? Indeed, sometimes when he returned, he did not remember them, at least not well. Wendy was sure of it. He saw recognition come into his eyes as he was about to pass them the time of day and go on, and even once she had to call him by name. I'm Wendy, she said agitatedly. He was very sorry. I say, Wendy, he whispered to her, always if you see me forgetting you, just keep on saying, I'm Wendy, and then I'll remember. Of course, this was rather unsatisfactory. However, to make amends, he showed them how to lie out flat on a strong wind that was going their way, and this was such a pleasant change that they tried it several times and found that they could sleep thus with security. Indeed, they would have slept longer, but Peter tired quickly of sleeping, and soon he would cry in his captain voice, "We get off here!" And so with occasional tips, but on the whole rollicking, they drew near the Neverland. For after many moons they did reach it. And what is more, they had been going pretty straight all the time. Perhaps not so much owing to the guidance of Peter or Tink, as because the island was looking for them. It is only thus that anyone may sight those magic shores. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here, because it is almost 1 a.m. and it is late. Thank you all so much for coming. I will be off for the next 2 days, but we will have another stream on Tuesday. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you have an excellent evening or day or whatever time zone it is for you. And I'm going to find someone. Yes, of course. I'm going to be doing this about once a month, give or take, depending on how things go. So I'm going to find someone to raid. So yes, of course. Thank you for coming. And for any lurkers who may still be here, thank you for the lurk. And we're gonna fling you somewhere. Let's find out where we're going.